You don't belong in my world anymore. That was all she wrote, after 4 years together. I was working from my one-bedroom apartment in San Fernando Valley, Los Angeles, the same place where I had started my AI startup 18 months ago. My desk was always cluttered with notes and unfinished lines of code. It was a quiet Monday afternoon. Sunlight filtered through the blinds while I debugged an image recognition algorithm. I'm Ethan Reed, 28, AI engineer, introverted and deeply in love with Vanessa Morgan. She worked in PR for a media firm in Santa Monica. Charismatic, sharp, disarmingly beautiful, she could make people fall with just a few words. We'd been together since college. When I started my company, she was the only one who believed I could make it. Until today. The phone lit up with a notification like a dagger to the chest. Vanessa, you don't belong in my world anymore. No fights, no serious warning signs, just a few missed dates, vague excuses. I stared at the screen, hoping for more. But that was all. I stared at that text for minutes. My hand trembled. The mouse cursor danced aimlessly. Part of me wanted to call her, beg for answers. But the other part, the one already hardened by solitude, just wanted to shut down and sleep. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just replied, "Thank you for your honesty. I wish you the best." She saw it. No reply. That night, I sat on the balcony. Los Angeles glowed below, like always. But inside me? Darkness. I watched the cars below zip past like streaks of light, fast, cold, indifferent. I checked the text one last time. Scene 9:32 p.m. She was gone, as if she'd never been part of my journey. I shut the window, sat back down, opened my laptop, coded. Coded to forget. Coded not to feel. Coded to survive. I didn't tell friends, didn't post online, because I believed, if I stayed silent long enough, the universe would speak for me. I didn't know it then, but that silence would become the first bullet in a war I never thought I'd win, let alone win beautifully. He had money, status, charm, and now he had her. But what he didn't have was time. And I had plenty. About 3 weeks after the breakup, I was holding together. Barely. That morning, while making coffee, a friend sent me a link. Tech investor Grant Parker spotted with new girlfriend at Beverly Hills Gala. I opened the article and saw her, Vanessa, smiling beside him in a red dress, cameras flashing like she belonged to a movie set I'd never be cast in. Grant Parker, 42, a famed venture capitalist who backed 7 unicorn startups, twice divorced, always seen with top-tier models. And Vanessa, no longer the girl who loved late-night tacos and whispered ideas to me in bed. She had upgraded, or at least, she thought she had. I didn't feel jealousy. I felt nothing. She hadn't chosen him over me. She'd never chosen me at all. I closed the laptop and thought, if I stay silent, what can I do with that silence? 3 days later, an email came from a VC scout firm. They were sourcing promising AI startups for Grant Parker. I grinned, not out of spite, but because timing is a strange ally. Under a newly registered entity, NeuroX, I submitted the product pitch I'd refined for half a year. No names, no hints. I wanted to be picked for merit. A week later, I was invited to pitch in person. Location: Pendry Hotel, West Hollywood. Across from me in the meeting room, Grant Parker. We shook hands. I stared into his eyes and smiled. "Thanks for taking the time." He nodded. "I like confident young founders. Your deck caught my attention." I presented. Clear, concise, no emotion. NeuroX, an AI platform enabling real-time neural communication between humans and devices. As I left the hotel, I knew. I didn't need revenge in words. I just had to build. And eventually, they'd walk right into my game. Vanessa would soon realize the man Grant had just funded was the man she walked away from. No one recognized me in that room. That's when I knew. This game was unfolding just right. Pendry Hotel, West Hollywood, California. 15th floor conference room, Tuesday morning. Sunlight cut through tinted glass. I wore a charcoal shirt, hair slicked back, contract in hand. No one here knew me as Ethan. I was the CEO of NeuroX, represented by a brand new entity. Grant Parker sat at the head of the table, navy suit, Patek Philippe glinting on his wrist. Grant was just as expected. Calm words, sharp eyes, calculated grin. Beside him sat his financial advisor, legal counsel, and 2 junior VCs. They all thought I was a rising young founder. None of them, not even Grant, knew I was Vanessa's ex. And I intended to keep it that way. As I finished the pitch, Grant raised an eyebrow. "You're not the kind of founder I usually bet on. But this idea, it's bold." I replied calmly, "That's because I'm not building to get funded. I'm building to change the market," he smirked. "I like that. Initial offer. $10 million for 25% equity, with first rights on future rounds." I had expected this. I embedded clauses that limited operational interference, meaning Grant couldn't oust me like he had done to other founders before. Everything was legal, subtle, clean, and signed by his own hand. As he signed, I glanced at him. Just for a second. "I used to think men like you were the top of the world," I said unintentionally. Grant laughed. "I still am." I smiled. "Let's test that." The contract was notarized on site. NeuroX officially secured its first funding. I began hiring engineers, rebuilding the product system, prepping for our MPV demo at the TechX conference. Grant thought he had gained a prodigy, but he had just staked his entire reputation on a man he unknowingly wronged. I stepped out into the morning sun. No one knew that the heartbroken coder had just moved his first chess piece. And Grant? He was already the first pawn on the board. As I walked onto the stage, hundreds of eyes turned toward me. But I only saw 2. Grant Parker and Vanessa. TechX Conference, Las Vegas. One of the biggest tech events of the year. The ballroom at the Wynn Hotel shimmered in gold lighting, sleek leather seats stretching across the floor. I was one of 3 keynote speakers, representing the next wave of AI founders in the US. Me. No longer the scrawny coder. Tailored black suit, slick hair, sharp gaze. Grant sat in the VIP row, casually holding a champagne glass. Beside him, Vanessa. Green satin dress, elegant bun, perfect makeup, but lost eyes when she saw me walk out. The MC announced, "Please welcome the founder of NeuroX, California's first real-time neural AI interface, Ethan Reed." Applause erupted. I heard a faint gasp from the front row. Vanessa had recognized me. I walked up to the podium. Everything else faded. No nerves. I didn't start with tech. I began with a story. 2 years ago, someone told me I didn't belong in this world. I believed them, so I stayed silent. I looked at Vanessa, then at Grant. Silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's how you build an empire, while others chase spotlights. The room froze. I shifted to the product demo. NeuroX ran flawlessly. Applause echoed. Grant watched quietly. Vanessa looked down. After the talk, investors queued up to shake my hand. Reporters begged for interviews. I walked off stage, passing Grant. He nodded. I nodded back. Vanessa stood still, eyes glistening. I didn't stop. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like the outsider anymore. She once left me without looking back. Now she stood before me, drenched in rain, eyes shimmering, waiting for a response I no longer carried. 3 weeks after TechX, I was leaving the new NeuroX office in Palo Alto. The company was scaling fast. 30 employees, our pilot product already drawing positive reviews. As I stepped outside, I saw her. A woman in a gray coat, soaked, Vanessa. Not the glamorous Vanessa from tabloids. This was someone tired, unpainted, shadows under her eyes. She said nothing. I nodded, signaling her to come in. She sat with a cup of warm tea. Minutes passed. Then quietly, Why didn't you reply? I met her eyes. Because I sent too many messages once and got nothing in return. She looked down. I'm sorry, she whispered. She told me about the weeks after she left. At first, glamour, parties, headlines. Then came the control. Grant's rules, his decisions, his expectations. I thought I chose right, until I saw you on that stage and realized real strength is knowing when to stay silent. She placed her hand on the table. I miss you. I miss how you looked at me. When we listened to music, when you made coffee, when you talked about code no one else understood. I know. It's probably too late. But if we could go back, I gently interrupted. It's not too late because of time. It's too late because there's nowhere left for trust to live. I wasn't angry. Wasn't bitter. Just calm. I no longer carry the old image of you in my head. And I think you shouldn't carry the old me either. She nodded slowly. A tear dropped to the table. She stood, said nothing more. I walked her to the door, without turning back. Outside, the rain had just stopped. This time, the one standing in silence was her. And I had finally learned to walk away, without needing to look. She once left me without looking back. Now she stood before me, drenched in rain, eyes shimmering, waiting for a response I no longer carried. 3 weeks after TechX, I was leaving the new NeuroX office in Palo Alto. The company was scaling fast. 30 employees, our pilot product already drawing positive reviews. As I stepped outside, I saw her. A woman in a gray coat, soaked. Vanessa. Not the glamorous Vanessa from tabloids. This was someone tired, unpainted, shadows under her eyes. She said nothing. I nodded, signaling her to come in. She sat with a cup of warm tea. Minutes passed. Then quietly. Why didn't you reply? I met her eyes. Because I sent too many messages once and got nothing in return. She looked down. I'm sorry, she whispered. She told me about the weeks after she left. At first, glamour, parties, headlines. Then came the control. Grant's rules, his decisions, his expectations. I thought I chose right, until I saw you on that stage and realized real strength is knowing when to stay silent. She placed her hand on the table. I miss you. I miss how you looked at me. When we listened to music, when you made coffee, when you talked about code no one else understood. I know. It's probably too late. But if we could go back, I gently interrupted. It's not too late because of time. It's too late because there's nowhere left for trust to live. I wasn't angry. Wasn't bitter. Just calm. I no longer carry the old image of you in my head. And I think you shouldn't carry the old me either. She nodded slowly. A tear dropped to the table. She stood, said nothing more. I walked her to the door, without turning back. Outside, the rain had just stopped. This time, the one standing in silence was her. And I had finally learned to walk away, without needing to look. Grant called me at 2:13 a.m. In over a year of working together, he had never called that late. I knew the last piece had just fallen. NeuroX office. Palo Alto. I was still up, reviewing a Series B contract with a Japanese tech firm. Everything was progressing smoothly. Then the phone rang. Grant Parker. His voice was different, rough, urgent, shaky. Ethan, we need to talk. I capped my pen, turned on speaker, sat down. For the first time, Grant sounded afraid. He had reviewed the contract and realized he had no exit rights, no say in operations, unless approved unanimously by the founding board, consisting of myself and 2 loyal partners. Did you sneak that clause in? I didn't sneak. It was there the day you signed. He offered to renegotiate, promised larger funding, hinted at helping me go global. I replied calmly, I didn't build NeuroX to depend on anyone, and I sure didn't build it to prove anything to anyone. He paused, Then in a slower tone, "You know Vanessa left me, right?" Silence. He continued. "She said, you were the only man who never tried to own her." I chuckled softly. "I don't own people. I just hold my value. Whoever stays or leaves isn't the point anymore." I advised him to protect his own name. Trying to claw back control now would only damage his credibility in Silicon Valley. "This isn't revenge. I just did my part. And this time, I don't need validation." He hung up. No more words. I looked back at my screen. Contract signed, Series B, $30 million. I shut the laptop. Outside, dawn was rising. I knew. The game was over. And I was the one who didn't need to win loudly. I used to think silence meant weakness. Now I understand. Silence is how the world learns to listen. 6 months after Series B, NeuroX had just been named one of Wired's top 10 breakthrough AI companies of 2025. We were invited to IPO early. I said no. Instead, I sat at a quiet cafe near the San Francisco Bay, staring out at the Golden Gate Bridge. The same place I once considered quitting. Today, I returned. Not to end anything, but simply to smile. I was no longer the old Ethan, but I wasn't the cover page CEO either. I was a man who had walked through betrayal, heartbreak, and ambition, and come out the other side. Victory didn't come from revenge. It came from no longer needing it. People asked me, "Do you regret anything?" I'd smile. Of course I did. I regretted loving too hard, giving too much, trusting someone so deeply I lost myself. But without those regrets, I wouldn't have become this version of me. I gave 20% equity to my earliest team, said no to supercars, no to penthouses. Instead, I founded a scholarship fund, named after my mother, who once collected bottles to pay for my coding classes. A journalist once asked in a private interview, "Anything you'd like to say to your ex?" I paused, then replied, "No." Silence. That was it. Because if a response was needed, I wouldn't have chosen silence in the first place. I stood up, walked out into the sunset. Warm light kissed my face. Not too bright, just enough to tell me I was finally in the right place, with the right self, at the right time. No one beside me. No validation needed. No noise required. I am the one who stayed silent, and that silence made the world turn its head.